video we're going to be continuing our old school Asteroids game tutorial, and we'll be adding in some features for when we lose a life. We are respawning back in, and then perhaps looking at ending the game because we ran out of lives. So currently, when we run into the asteroid, we play an effect and a sound, a particle system, but then we just sit right there. So what we really want to do is to have our ship disappear, and then after a certain amount of time spawn him back out somewhere in the middle of the screen here where he can pick up and go on with his next life. So let's go into the script here for our spaceship. Down here in our onCollision enter 2D function is where we know that we've hit something and where we've lost a life. So here again is where we're doing all the things where we lost a life. We're taking lives away, we're making an explosion, and we're updating our lives on the screen. And then we're checking to see if there's any lives left. So let's just work on a respawning system here at this point. This is going to be respawn. It's a new life. Alright, so first of all, what we're going to want to do is make ourselves go away temporarily. So we can do that a couple of ways. One of the easy ways to do it would be just to turn off our colliders and our sprite renderers. So on the spaceship here, if we were to turn off our sprite renderer, we would disappear. But if you notice, our collider will still remain out here. So let me click back on the spaceship. If I go down here to his collider, see the collider is still here. So if we turned off the sprite renderer and the collider, then we would no longer be able to be hit by anything or seen by anything. So we could just turn those two things off temporarily, and then when we're ready to start up again, we can turn our sprite back on. And if we wanted to give ourselves a little bit of invulnerability for a few moments, we could wait a little bit longer and then turn our capsule collider back on, which is detecting collisions. So let's take a look at how to do that. In our script, right here, what we would do is we would just have to go out and access our sprite renderer. So we could say get component, and the component we want, we always do angle brackets and then parentheses. Here we want is the sprite renderer. Let's go down and find sprite renderer. There he is. So we can get component sprite renderer, and we can say dot enabled equals false. What that will do is it'll turn our sprite renderer off. It's like unchecking the box like I just did out in the inspector. We also want to do the same thing for our collider. So we could say get component, and the component we want is our collider 2D. What it'll do is it'll look for the first component that it finds that matches this, and it will have access to it. So let's see if we can do it just by saying that. Again, we'll say enabled equals false. Okay, so that should turn off our render and our collider, just like we were talking about a second ago. So let's go out and check and see if that indeed happens. So play, and let's hit this asteroid here. There we go. So we hit him hard enough to die. Our explosion played, and you notice that the spaceship was nowhere to be seen. He's still here, but if we go up here and look, we'll see that his sprite render has been turned off, and his capsule collider has been turned off. So the spaceship currently is right here. He's drifting around the screen right here. He's just invisible. Okay, he's still moving, he's still wrapping around. We haven't killed his motion or anything like that, but he is, for all intents and purposes, gone. Now we can actually, if you watch the little symbol for him there, we can actually turn him and see how he's turning, and we can make him go faster. We still have control over him, but he's gone for all intents and purposes. Okay, so then what we can do is we can wait a certain amount of time, and then turn these back on. So we're going to put a little delay in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to invoke a function. Invoking a function is a way to call a function, but we can call it with a time delay of sorts. So after we turn these off, we can do an invoke, and then what we would do is we would tell it the name of the function to call and how long to wait before it calls it. So we need to make a new function, so we'll just call this respawn. We have to make this function yet, and we have to make that as a string, which means I have to put the quotes around it. So we're going to make a function called respawn and put a comma, and let's invoke it after 3 seconds. Alright, so that will cause that to be called in 3 seconds. So then we just have to make that function. So let's just drop that function up here. Let's make it a void, call it respawn, has to be spelled exactly the same. And then we're going to put the instructions we want to have happen when we respawn. So basically we want to undo what we did just right here. So let's copy and let's paste these back in. So we're going to go back to the sprite render and the collider, and we're going to set enable to true. So here we go, true and true. Okay, so this will cause him to become visible again, and also to have his collider turn back on. And we probably want to reposition him somewhere to the center of the screen, and also kill his velocity so he's not already moving when we pop him back in. So let's do some of that as well, and maybe we'll do that before. Doesn't probably make too much difference, so let's do it up here. So let's go to the rigid body of our ship, which is called RB, and we'll say dot velocity. So velocity is a vector 2, so let's set it equal to vector 2 dot 0. That will zero out his velocity. It'll cause him to stop moving. And then let's also position. So let's go to transform dot position, and we also, let's go ahead and actually also set that equal to a vector 2.0. That should put him at 0, 0 on the XY axis. So let's see if it likes this. I'm going to save it and go back to Unity. Make sure we don't get any errors in what I did there. It looks fine, getting a warning, but that's not anything to worry about. Okay, so let's see what happens if I play. And let's come over here and try to hit this asteroid here. I'm moving really fast. Boom. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And there I am. I popped back right in the middle. Velocity was killed, and I'm able to start up again. Okay, so that gave me a 3-second delay, and we can try that again. There we go, I blew up, and I'll pop back up. Now you notice this time I popped back up and the asteroid was there and it started pushing me right away, so that might not be totally fair to our player. So we could either somehow do a check before we respawn to make sure that that area is clear of asteroids, and then just wait until it is clear before we respawn. Or we could just make ourselves invulnerable for a few seconds after we respawn to give the player a chance to get out of the way. And so I don't know which method you'd like to do, but we could do either one of those. So let's go back into our script here. And that is working just fine to do that. Now, like I was saying, we could break this into 2 pieces. We could respawn, and then we could, which makes us turn back visible and gives us control again. And then we could wait to enable our collider for a little bit longer to give our player a chance to get out of trouble, give them some invulnerability for a few seconds. Something like that would just be invoking another function. So we could write another function right here, and we could call this invulnerable, and we could just use this to turn that off, or to leave a bit of a time. And then we could move the collider here. So let's cut that from there and paste it down here into this one. And after we call the respawn, we could then also do another invoke, and we can invoke invulnerable, and we could give us like maybe 3 seconds of invulnerability time after that as well. Okay, so this will cause him to just reappear and then have his collider come back after 3 more seconds. If we want to give a visual cue, we could look at changing his color, making him a bit see-through or tinting him a different color here to show that he's invulnerable. So let's take a look at that. Out in Unity, if I click in on my spaceship, he's got a sprite render, he's got a color value here. Right now the color is all 255s. It's just a bright white tint. If I change this, he actually changes to a different color. So I could actually kind of tint him a different color to show that he's invulnerable, or we could leave him all at white and make him kind of see-through. This is the alpha channel, which is transparency. So if I slide that down, he disappears, and now he comes back. So we could actually give him some sort of a real low alpha value here for he's mostly kind of see-through when he pops back up, and then we could raise that back all the way up once he's no longer invulnerable again. So there's a couple of things we could do. Let's try the alpha here. So let's say we do a color value where the alpha is about a 75. So what we need to do is establish that color. So let's go into our script here, and let's go ahead and make a couple of color variables up here somewhere. So let's just add some public. Let's add a public color. We'll call this in color when he's invulnerable. And then let's make another one for normal color, so we can set him back to his normal color. Okay, and we save this. What we can do is out in Unity we can specify these colors. It's easier than just typing numbers in out there. So let's wait. Okay, so here we go. So his invulnerable color needs to be all 255s, and then we were going to set this guy to about a 75 on the alpha. So that's going to be his invulnerability color. And then normal color here is just everything slid all the way up to 255. So we can just slide those all up. Alright, so we should be able to switch between these colors here now, and we just kind of assigned them out here in the inspector. Really easy to play test and kind of play with this. We could play with different tints of color, things like that as well. So now all we have to do in our script here is go down to where we want to change the color. So when we call respawn, we're going to enable the sprite renderer here, but we also want to change the color of the sprite renderer here as well. So let's we're going to be having to get this sprite render a couple of times, so let's break this up a bit. Let's actually store the sprite renderer. So let's make a sprite renderer variable. We'll call it SR, I guess, for sprite renderer. Let's set it equal to this get component, and we're going to have to take this enabled.true off because that's going to be doing too many things in one line. Okay, so we'll store this, and then let's just go to SR for our sprite renderer, and then we can say dot enabled equals true. And we might want to just even get the sprite renderer and store it at the very top of our script so we're not constantly get componenting. But for now we'll do this, and then we're also going to go to color, the color of this, and let's set it equal to our in color, because that's our color we set up. So we can then set the color there. So that's in our invulnerable color there. And then when we call invulnerable, we'll go ahead and get the collider again. So we're enabling the collider here at this point. And then let's go ahead and get the SpriteRenderer. So another get component. And it's going to be the SpriteRenderer. Whoops, spelled sprite wrong. SpriteRenderer. And what we want to do now, again, is go to the color, set it equal to our normal color. Okay, so there we go. Let's test this out here in Unity. We should see the color change happen now when we run into something and need to respawn. And that will give us some time to get respawned. Let's see where he's going to pop back out at. There he goes. Let's start thrusting towards him. There we go. So we pop back up in the middle, see how we're kind of grayed out, and then we popped back to full color. So that gives our players some invulnerability time to possibly get out of the way. Alright, and that'll do it for this video. We're going to continue in the next video with looking at how to have the game quit when we run out of lives and how to start and restart the game. So as always, thanks for watching. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below and I will get to them as quick as I see them. Thanks, have a great day.